Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on the Fat Burning Man Show, where we talk about real food and real results. Do prescription meds cause more problems than they solve? Watch any one of the incessant commercials from pharmaceutical companies in the US, and the laundry list of side effects, otherwise known as effects, are horrifying. Joining me on the show today is a former pharmacist who has a lot to say, Mr. Niraj Naik. With a history of working long hours as a community pharmacist across the pond, Niraj witnessed firsthand many clients going home with bags full of drugs each month, rarely getting better, and usually going on to suffer from other diseases. Niraj left the pharmacy behind and is now known as the Renegade Pharmacist, helping others heal using natural treatments like Ayurvedic practices, dietary recommendations, meditation, yoga, and mind power techniques like self-hypnosis and NLP. On top of that, Niraj is also a musician and is definitely into sound healing and breathwork. Now, before we get into that, let's just experience the effects of breathwork, something that's very easy and free and instantaneous compared to drugs. So no drugs anywhere right now. Keep them away from you at this moment, but do take a moment and take a deep breath with me. Breathe in. Hold for a second. Breathe out. Just in those few seconds, I can already feel myself, and I get all sorts of anxiety when I'm about to record like this. I can feel myself starting to chill out a little bit, and I hope you did too, but look forward to a lot more of that on this show. Before we get there, let's share a quick review that came in for the Wild Diet from Christine. She says, purchased 2 copies of this book, gave one to my 2 sons. In the past 3 months since starting Abel's Wild Methods, we have all lost weight and improved our health. All the food tastes fantastic. Christine, thank you so much for writing in and sharing this with your family. That is a major accomplishment, let me say. Families and people close to you in general can sometimes be the toughest people to get on board with healthy habits, especially around eating, where people can be very territorial. What people choose to eat and not to eat is a very personal thing, and for many people, including me, and I think at its best, a spiritual thing. So it can be very divisive. So kudos to you for getting your family involved, and I'm really glad that you're enjoying it. But even more than that, I'm thrilled that you're enjoying the food and the recipes, because I think getting lost in the shuffle of all the new trends in science and health and nutrition, a lot of people forget how to just go in the kitchen and make simple, good foods. Cookies are a staple in our household, homemade ones, that is. Breads, cakes, pies, pancakes, all sorts of things can be made with real food, and they're better 99% of the time for you when you make them at home with real food. You'll learn the longer you do this that one of the most essential and critical things to staying healthy for the rest of your life is knowing how to be prepared. Being prepared for your next road trip, business trip, birthday party, having backup plans for when things really go sideways, for those worldwide global pandemics, making sure you have enough food and supplies. A little bit of preparation can go a long way, but you can still make survival foods and camping foods taste great and be great for you. Trust me, my wife and I traveled, as longtime listeners know, traveled around the country and the world, living out of RVs for periods of time, sometimes just backpacking, and you can make it work. It definitely takes effort to keep your health, and especially to eat well in times that are uncertain, in places that are weird, that you're not used to. It's difficult, but you can make it happen. So, Christine and family, kudos to you. Well done once again. Now, dear listener, how about you? How are you doing? I hope you're doing well, but if you're not and you have a question, please get in touch. Go to fatburningman.com. Drop me an email. Through the newsletter, you can just reply, but my direct email is abel@fatburningman.com. Let me know what you're struggling with. Let me know who you'd like me to interview next on this show, what you'd like us to talk about. And then if you have experienced results, Please join our community. Let us know how you're doing. I always appreciate your reviews, your emails, and every other way that you get in touch and also support this show. So don't forget to tell a friend if you enjoy it. Now, if you'd like to try the Wild Diet yourself, I have some very good news. We're making a lot of improvements behind the scenes. If you're looking for quick results, if you want to lose a little fat around the middle, you're getting some curves where you don't want them, or if you're just not performing at the level that you'd like, or you'd like to clean up your diet a little bit and maybe get back to some workouts, especially home workouts that will do you good, then make sure to check out our Wild 30 Fat Loss Program. Here's what you have to look forward to in that program. We'll show you how to reprogram your metabolism to go from sugar burner to fat burner, which speeds fat loss. We'll also tell you how to deal with some of the problems that a lot of people experience when they make that transition. You don't need to slave on a treadmill for hours. You can lose weight with much less time using our quick Wild 7 workouts. That said, if you want to exercise or eat in a very particular way, we can also support you there. You don't need to obsess yourself, though, with eating 6 meals a day or counting calories or counting any sort of points or anything like that. It's much more intuitive, and we're here to help. No ridiculous workouts, calorie counting, or gloom required. If you are ready to start shedding stubborn fat while eating delicious food, grab our 30-day program for a limited time discount at fatburningman.com/30 days. So just go to the little URL bar in your mobile device or on your computer, wherever you're at, type in fatburningman.com, then the slash, and 30 days, 30 days. Or if you just want to dip your toes into the wild lifestyle and way of eating, you can get our Wild Diet Quick Start Guide and 7-day meal plans on the house as a free gift for joining my newsletter over at fatburningman.com. You'll also get the best chocolate nut cookie recipe in the entire galaxy when you enter your email over at fatburningman.com. Just reply to it as well with your question, as I said before. And I've had a lot of fun reading those recently. It's a wacky new world in this new decade that we're dealing with here. But before I waste too much time babbling here, I just want to mention one more thing that's really exciting. On the newsletter, we regularly do a lot of challenges with our community. We do giveaways, and we just had a big one. We gave away thousands of dollars in wild superfoods goodies, and also over 13,000 of my books, many of them cookbooks, but also we gave away thousands of my brand new book, Designer Babies Still Get Scabies, which is now a #1 international bestseller in humor. So make sure that you're signed up for the newsletter over at fatburningman.com. We also gave away a smart grill. We've given away drones before. We gave away thousands of dollars in goodies and health supplements from Wild Superfoods. So if you want to join our next giveaway, make sure that you sign up for the newsletter over at fatburningman.com from your mobile device or your computer and anything in between, your headset, your VR goggles, or whatever else you might be, your watches and wearables. Just type in fatburningman.com, sign up for the newsletter, and we'll hook you right up. And also, I just want to say that if you want our favorite health supplements in the world and you want to support this show, then visit wildsuperfoods.com. It's a very good time to boost your immune system and stock up on goodies that can do so. And we're offering lots of good deals on vitamin D stack, on our Mega Omegas, on our Future Greens, which, if you want to know what that is, it's basically shelf-stable fruits and veg that can get you through any apocalypse. If your access to healthy foods may be a little bit limited at some point in the future, you're on a road trip or you're shut in or whatever, check out Future Greens. We've got over a dozen superfoods that we've eaten and tested and tried and worked into our daily routine for years now. We trust our supplements with our family's health, with our community's health, and we hope that you enjoy them too. So if you'd like to support this show, check out Future Greens and all the deliciousness. Kids love it, I hear, over at wildsuperfoods.com. All right, on to the show with Niraj Naik. We're chatting about the benefits of and science behind breathwork, how to use natural supplements instead of prescription drugs, the power of music in healing, mind training with words instead of drugs, that's a big one, and tons more. All right, let's go hang out with Niraj. All right, folks, Niraj Naik is the Renegade Pharmacist, as well as a musician and entrepreneur. Niraj's popular brainwave meditation music library is used by spas, healing centers, and therapists worldwide. Thanks so much for joining us from all the way across the pond in Spain. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm Barcelona right now. Yeah, absolute pleasure.
I'm so glad that we can do this, even though we had to reschedule, and now it's like getting into the late in the night time for you. I'm really excited to speak because we have so many mutual interests. Yes. But where I'd like to begin, I think, is where you were at 30 years old, not wanting to carry around a colonoscopy bag. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's not the most sexy story in the world, but basically, I was a community pharmacist. I got very disillusioned with the profession. Long story short, I ended up actually housebound with a chronic illness called ulcerative colitis. And I was literally blood 40 times a day. It was horrible.
Wow.
And I was given two choices. Either you go on a drug that hasn't been tested before as a guinea pig, or have your colon removed, which means I would have had a colostomy bag. And to be given that news at that age was just terrifying and very, very disheartening. So they say God stands for gift of desperation. So I was actually the most desperate point in my whole life. And luckily someone came to my rescue called Soma, a beautiful lady who's runs one of the top yoga schools in the UK. And I was very fortunate because she basically said to me, look, you actually have a gift. If you can heal yourself from this illness with all of your backstory. I actually had a lot of success actually in the pharmacies getting people off the medications and using diet and lifestyle changes to help them get off. That's a long story in itself, and that's how I got named the Renegade Pharmacist. But basically I then had to go to work on myself, and she said that, you know, by learning the foundations of yoga, pranayama, Ayurveda, you should be able to get well, and you'll be able to inspire many people who've been in a similar situation. And she was completely right. I followed her lead. I then went really deep into all these subjects myself. I started to research people who had already cured themselves from this without medication, started to look at what their lifestyles like. And it all came down to some simple ingredients, and it just fixed me within a few months. And music was a big part of it, actually, the healing journey. And I ended up really falling in love with making music, and especially this beautiful therapeutic relaxation music, which you find in some of these like brainwave meditation tracks. Because I come from like a trance and dance music background, I decided to add my own flavor to it, and it became very popular. And then lots of people around the world have since used it, you know, so it's been amazing.
That's very cool. So you start, as I understand, I'm paraphrasing here, you started off wanting to be a rock star, but you became a healer instead. I think that's beautiful.
And but you know, you could also say that the music that I was into, this kind of euphoric dance music at the time, you could say is also like spiritual healing. You know,
Sure.
People went to it like church. You know, then actually the scene changed a bit, and it became very hedonistic, and a lot of alcohol got mixed into it. But in the early days, when I was like really, with the early days of now you call it EDM, but before the electronic music scene, there wasn't much alcohol involved. And actually without going on too much about it, the drugs was just so much better quality. Like it was like the most spiritual awakenings that we had. It was like going to church. And then it got kind of corrupted after a while, because then the culture became very mainstream and the wrong people got involved. The money got to certain DJs' heads, and myself included, became a victim of this kind of commercialization of music culture.
Yeah.
And I ended up like, I used to run like massive raves. I used to run like 2,000 capacity raves for 3 years. And then I lost everything and ended up as a pharmacist. And I think it was to teach me a lesson, because I went from having a lot, giant ego, to having nothing and being a slave to the pharmaceutical industry. And it was unbelievable wake-up call, but it was the best thing that happened, because I got a real good insight into the healthcare profession and what's going on there, Yeah.
It's so interesting, the dichotomy between those worlds. I can only imagine the, spiritual, but also, kind of drug-laden world of dance music culture, and then being a legal drug dealer. But like, which one heals more? What are the pros and cons? Just let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't get away from the drugs, right? So I actually saw people go away with shopping bags full of drugs.
Yeah,
I couldn't quite figure out what was going on, like in the beginning, and then I just had this deep intuitive sense that this whole system was a sham. Something wasn't right, because if you just put yourself in the position of this being the chief marketing officer of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, right? What's the biggest enemy to them? Their profit and their bottom line. It's a cured patient.
Yeah. Because
once the patient's cured, they don't need their drugs anymore. So they've lost the customer. So they don't want to cure people. So what they do is, so basically, in a very short synopsis of the whole like evolution of pharmaceutical industry, the early days, brilliant. They saved so many lives, smallpox vaccines and things like that, antibiotics, great, brilliant. Then what happened was they had been done with killing off these big bacterial infections, and it was like, now what? What do we do now? So they got involved with chronic health, and chronic health like such as heart disease and arthritis, autoimmune conditions. All of these things cannot really be fixed by a drug, but what you can do is you can treat the symptoms, and that will give you the illusion that you're getting better or you're better. However, what will happen is the drugs will stop working, and they'll create side effects, so you need more drugs. So this way you can create, as a pharmaceutical industry, a customer for life. There's a plethora of drugs. That's what a CMO would think like, obviously, because that's your job, that's how you're going to think.
Sure.
And it's crazy that that's how people think.
Right.
Because it's humans are being treated like cattle, but it's the way it works. I mean, if you really want to read a book on this, that's brilliant. It's by a psychiatrist. And actually mental health was one of the first industries they really went deep into. Like they literally created an industry of mental health.
Yeah.
With the early schizophrenic drugs, anti-schizophrenic drugs. Which were produced from all kinds of chemicals, leftover chemicals from the chemical industry. And they all work together. They all work hand in hand. But anyway, there's a book called Pharmageddon. You should check it out. It's a really good, interesting book. If you want to learn a lot about this. Yeah, Pharmageddon.
Yeah, got it.
It's basically the end of the world through, no, not really. It's like a lot of great facts about the pharmaceutical industry and how they've grown into such a giant organization and how they've pull the wool over people's eyes. But anyway, so I really suspected there was something going wrong, and I just became more and more disillusioned. I just saw people going away with shopping bags full of drugs. I was literally on a conveyor belt dishing out pills every day. So I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know what to do. I was very frustrated. And then literally I got dragged by one of my best friends at the time, who was a doctor, funny enough, psychiatrist, to a Tony Robbins event. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Tony, what is this nonsense?
Right.
Anyway, I went to it. It was the best thing ever. And the last day was all about health. And it was the first time I heard anyone talk about diet and nutrition for fixing diseases and getting into optimal states. Like at university, you don't learn about any of that. So I thought, what I'll do is I'll see if I can apply this knowledge to the patients and see if I can get them off the meds, see if it works, test Tony out. And I did. And I created these healthy shopping lists for people based on their conditions, and I had amazing results. However, it got me fired from my first job for mismanaging the pharmacy. But then it got me promoted to the head office of one of the biggest corporations in the world. And they loved this concept of healthy shopping lists. And we created this whole idea for a website which would give out healthy shopping lists based on people's conditions. And it would send like home shopping, to their homes. It'd be really good for housebound patients and stuff like that as well. But anyway, so unfortunately, 6 months into it all ended in disaster. It's where I was like known as a renegade because my ideas were quite controversial. I was basically in a nutshell saying don't eat factory-based foods. But majority of the profits of corporations, supermarket chains, is factory-based foods. So it would have, if it got popular, this concept, it would have been a devastating to their profits. Right. Very close to getting it through. But then, boom, I got so disillusioned. I got so depressed. I lost all my faith in humanity, God, everything. I got hit with like a chronic illness called ulcerative colitis, and literally I was shitting blood 40 times a day. It was hell. I just didn't know what to do. And that's where I got given two options, either be a guinea pig for a drug that hasn't been tested yet, or have your colon removed. And then I would have been the colostomy bag, and boom, luckily came to the rescue this lady, and this yoga teacher who taught me the foundations of pranayama, yoga, and Ayurveda, which just was transformational. It was amazing. Yeah.
Why do you think it stuck then? What was the thing that you were ready for, or why was that the thing that made the rest of your life happen this way?
What, the getting sick?
Yeah. It's almost like, were you asking for it, or like, were you ready for it, or what happened?
So there's a good friend of mine who's called Marissa Peer, and she's one of the top hypnotherapists out there. And we work quite a lot together. And basically, she gave me a great understanding of subconscious mind, that some cases, the subconscious, so if you imagine we're like two people in one body, right? We have a conscious mind, a subconscious mind, and a human or a inner chimp that has been talked about in the Chimp Management book. By Steve Peters, I think his name is. Anyway, so what happens is that sometimes if you don't listen to that voice inside your head, which is it's like a whisper, which is your whole brain. So your whole brain is your gut, it's your heart, it's your head, it's your sex, it's all the endocrine glands basically that produce hormones that create feelings and emotions. And if you stop listening to them, this gut instinct, if your heart's not in it, eventually it will do something to you to give you what it is that you wanted. And what I really wanted was a way out of my job. And instead, like what I did was I did a lot of dabbling to try and quit my job. Mm-hmm. But then I worked really hard. This time I worked really hard. And I was so frustrated with trying to prove to people that diet and nutrition and all these things are important, right? Because people are so brainwashed in the mainstream. Even my own family, they just didn't want to know. They just thought I was crazy. That I think the subconscious mind gave me exactly what I needed, which was the chance to prove everyone wrong by curing myself. And it put me out of my job. And it forced me to go deep on what it is I really wanted to do. And it gave me a lot of time. It ticked so many boxes, and it gave me exactly what I wanted, and it worked out exactly like that. But I don't wish that upon anyone.
Right.
I like to now help people before it gets to that point. Like I want to help people get aligned with their inner world, aligned with their outer world, in a way where they just go in the flow to where they want to go. And now there is no excuse, in my opinion. We have the most abundance. We have everything at our fingertips. We have apps, we have computers, we have, mobile phones that are like more powerful than, space station computers were like a few years, 10, 20 years ago. And literally we have everything we need to create abundance, wealth, health, happiness, everything. But yet still some people don't, or they get overwhelmed with choice. Now we all have a big problem of too much choice. Where do we go? What direction we're going? And distraction. And distraction turns into procrastination. And, there's the law of attraction, there's the law of action, which is more important, but then there's also the law of distraction. And a lot of people are caught up in this, and I was for a while. And that's what I'm trying to help people do, is take more action, because that's where the real success happens in people's lives.
And a simple way to do that in the here and now is through breath work itself. And it's pretty easy to go through life without ever thinking too much about your breath. But I've asked a number of people, some of them coaches to professional athletes, others, who more have your type of background, what is like the most important thing? And it always comes back to the breath and how it's managed. And there are people might not realize that they're breathing wrong. Right? Not that that's not exactly the right word, but can you speak a little bit to the power of breath, and also perhaps a little bit of what we can do to improve our own practices?
Yes. So what I learned from my Swami originally was pranayama, which means energy control. So this will be interesting for your listeners who are into keeping, fit and healthy and having good stamina and endurance. Basically, let's go right to what that means. Prana means energy, yama means control, right? Prana and breath go hand in hand. Why is that? Because imagine inside every single cell in your body, there's a fire burning right now. That's your mitochondria. It's like a furnace, all right? So what happens when you breathe in oxygen. Oxygen goes in, binds to blood cells, right? Red blood cells. If there's enough carbon dioxide gradient, the oxygen comes off the red blood cells, goes into the tissue cells, and goes into the fire to burn glucose, and that's how you produce energy. And that energy, ATP, is actually light. It's light energy. All right, so we are all light. Where everything moves through us and communicates through us through light, photon energy, guided by ATP. Now, so that means that breath, by controlling your breath and your rate of breath and your rhythm of breath, you actually control the inner fire, the fire within your mitochondria, and the amount of energy you produce. Now, this is super important, okay? Now, there's a lot of research going on now into mitochondrial function, and a lot of people are saying that this is the foundation of your health. And as soon as mitochondrial function goes out of sync, it can lead to all kinds of problems and diseases and fatigue and brain fog and all that. You hear David Asprey going on about a lot of this stuff, and Ben Greenfield, who's a friend, and stuff like that. So
True.
Anyway, so let's just go into that and why the breath affects that. So what the yogis figured out was actually oxygen is our friend and our enemy at the same time, okay? So we need oxygen to produce the energy. However, too much oxygen leads to too much fire. And just like California, too much oxygen by over breathing or too much wind, California get all these wildfires, right? The same thing goes on inside. If you have too much air, if you over breathe, it produces too much fire, which leads to free radical production. And that free radical production can actually damage the DNA and cause early cell death and aging and degenerative disease and even cancer by creating mutations in the DNA. So what the yogis figured out was actually it's all about controlling it and becoming efficient at using oxygen. It's so efficient that the less oxygen you need, the less you breathe, it means you live longer. Okay, and they observed animals. The animals that breathe very fast, they live not very long time, like rodents. But the animals that very slow breathers, they have very much longer longevity. So like elephants and animals like that. Humans as well. We have the ability to control our breath consciously, which is very unique. And if we give up our control to our autonomic nervous system, which most people do, which is what controls everything that happens on autopilot, then under stress, the reptilian brain senses danger and it kicks in fight and flight response, which puts us into a state of action, like either to fight or to run away. This was very useful in the olden days when we were in jungles. Okay, so when we were in the jungle, we were surrounded by lions, tigers, and bears. Right, that was our threat in nature. And if they came, we'd run away, or we would attack, and it would give us a relief once we've got rid of the stressor. Right, so the nervous system calmed down. But fast forward now, we're surrounded by, we're in concrete jungles, and we're surrounded by different forms of stresses, which are, instead of lions, tigers, and bears, deadlines, bills, bosses, relationships that aren't working out, guilt, envy, jealousy, the fear on the news and media, all of that stuff bombarding us all day long. So the fight or flight response is always switched on, and we don't get a chance to turn it off. And that means that we're pumping adrenaline and cortisol, which shrinks arteries and causes vasoconstriction. So basically, we can't just rush out and stab our boss or whatever like that, even though we really feel like it. We really want to, attack or run away from our job or our relationship. We can't, and we come home and we're stressed out. We go to work, we're stressed out. So there's no off switch for stress. We're not given that off switch for stress. The yogis figured out the off switch for stress, right? And it's super simple. It's to do with breathing, all right? So first, to summarize, we need to make our mitochondria as efficient as possible, so we breathe less. Secondly, we have to find an off switch for stress so we don't over breathe, because that sympathetic response actually creates a demand for energy, excess energy, but we're not physically using it up. But the emotional stress creates the same chemistry in the body as physical stress. So the off switch for stress is the exhale. When you exhale, you stimulate parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite of the sympathetic. When you inhale, you stimulate sympathetic, right? So when you breathe out longer than you breathe in, you turn off the stress response. Now, if you do rhythmic breathing, if you breathe in for 2 and out for 4, or you double your exhalation time, breathe in for 4, out for 8 in a rhythm, which is what I've got really deep into doing with music and stuff, and that's what we call Soma breath. You can actually quickly switch off the stress. I use an app called SweetBee HRV, which allows me to measure the sympathetic levels and the parasympathetic levels, and you'll see it switch. Within a minute, you're going to be into a calm, relaxed nervous system state. Wow. And this lasts a long time. I've done experiments where I did it with my friend, and then I was like going, wah, like that, to try and shock him. And it was really hard to get him back into a sympathetic response. And he was just more calm and relaxed. So this 2-4 rhythm is amazing. And it puts you into a healing mode, rest and digest mode. So doing that for a few minutes a day, like when you're digesting your food or when you want to go to sleep, because it's rest and digest, so you use it for when you're resting and you're digesting, it will change your life. It will change your life forever, because you'll finally get to sleep. You'll finally be able to digest the food without getting indigestion and heartburn and all that stuff. And that alone will dramatically be an impact in your life.
That's so important, because so often people get caught up in the food that you're eating, but in fact, the state that you're eating food in can be so much more important than even the food. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And we know that there are solutions, and oftentimes it's just a little bit of targeted breathing, right? But let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so obviously to digest your food, you need to produce the right enzymes, and you have to be in the right state, which is the parasympathetic state. So most people, unfortunately, and I was one of these people when I was in the pharmacy, we would have like 5 minutes really to have to ourselves to have lunch. So in that 5 minutes, I went to McDonald's and got back to my desk. Right, wow. And that was my window of opportunity to get my lunch, and then you're bang, prescription, eating.
Yeah.
So how is that healthy? I mean, first you're eating junk, and then you're eating under stress. So I was every day getting heartburn, indigestion. It was no wonder that this took its toll eventually, and this is common. This is not just me.
Sure.
All right. So just by having a few minutes just to breathe in through your nose is what stimulates the parasympathetic, Mouth stimulates sympathetic. So nose breathing is super important. And then extend your exhalate. Or another thing you can do is breathe in and breathe out very slowly, like you're breathing out through a straw. And that alone will just make you feel calm, more relaxed, more focused, more present. Okay, and another thing you can do, which is actually very effective, is to use the chant Om. Om is actually 3 syllables, A, U, M. And actually the yogi, the very ancient rishis, they encoded the secrets of how to live your life, which is actually, the method is called Tantra. Tan means body, Tantra means, it's basically all the methods of having the best life that you do through your body. So through action, through your physical world. So yoga is a philosophy, the mind, how to think. And the Tantra is the doing, the action, to have the best life. So it's like the ancient biohackers, that's what they created, was Tantra and yoga, right? Now, in there they encoded, so they came up with these metaphorical stories. So the gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, or Shivam, were the gods, right? The 3 supreme deities. So Brahma is the supreme creator. And actually the tone is very important. Brahma, ah. So the Om is actually 3 syllables, A, U, M. Okay? So when you say Om, you're going to say those syllables in turn and make a vibration. So Brahma, ah, Brahma means creator, the god of creation. And if you look, all of the creative parts of the body that creation happens is your sex and your digestive system. And if you go, ah, you'll feel a vibration down here. All right? Ah, okay? And then the next god is Vishnu, the preserver, okay? Oo. And that's the 2nd syllable in Om. Ah, oo. Okay, so if you go, ooh, you'll feel the vibration there. If you just do it, you'll feel it. Okay? And the idea is that you move energy up through the body. So if you go, ah, ooh, you can actually feel the energy goes up, right? It goes from your sex to your digestive glands into your heart, right? And then the 3rd, to complete the cycle, is Shivam, like that. It's the humming sound. So if you go, like that, okay, you can even accentuate the humming by putting your tongue to the roof of your mouth, go, like that. So, you'll feel the vibration moves up through the body, right? That, just doing rounds of that is so therapeutic. Because a lot of us store, right, when we're very scared, okay, what do? When we're fearful, when we're stressed, we're angry, we're not happy, we store a lot of energy. We're creating a lot of fire. Our sexual energy is going, especially when we're younger, we're full of fire and we want to just do things. But that can make us get distracted and get ADHD and go all over the place and lose control of the mind. Yeah. So to bring the mind into harmony, and this is what Chitravriti Nirodha is the sutras for what yoga stands for, which is bring peace to the mind, right? Calm the mind, bring peace to, control the mind, basically. So the one of the most powerful ways of doing that is what we just did there, is the and you just breathe like that in a rhythm, okay, making those vibrations, and it calms all the nervous system down, and it moves all that sexual energy up to a higher purpose, to the higher consciousness, which is your 3rd eye, your pineal gland, your midbrain, which is the seat of awareness. And through this, we can actually transmit energy from down here up to here and use it for a more worthwhile pursuit, like creativity, music, arts. I mean, if you take away everything from the planet, and if you, what I mean is, if you take away all of the art and music from the planet, what have humans really done on this planet that's worthwhile, really?
That is a great question.
Nothing else. No. So this is why I believe that we're all natural creators. We're all natural artists. All of us are. We all have it inside, ready to unlock. And by us all becoming more creative and less robotized and, conditioned, we can actually create works of art and genius and things that will, leave a mark on the planet. And now it's easier than ever before to do this. And we need to go creative now because there's so many problems going on in the world that we need to solve. So it's time that we all stepped up.
Yeah, I love that. But so music and art can kind of be used to heal. But you mentioned earlier kind of the at least EDM scene being co-opted or driven in the wrong direction too. And music can almost be, in fact, most popular music today is more like junk food for the brain, right? So maybe you could speak a little bit to, because a lot of people kind of know that, but they still listen to pop music in the car and they still, it's not enough to actually change the behavior. So help me convince people that it's worth it to actually try to nourish your mind with music and art.
I'm very fortunate. Like I was best friends with one of the top music agents in the world, like music managers in the world, a guy called Safta Jaffrey. He sadly died, but he always told me one thing. He managed like the band called Muse. Have you heard of Muse?
Oh, sure, yeah.
And he discovered them and made them super famous. And a lot of super bands like Radiohead and all that were produced by his company.
Wow.
But anyway, so he was a great mentor, but he always said to me one thing: you just have to be really honest. He says people are not honest enough about what they like. Too many people just like things because someone else does, right? And it's very easy to brainwash people on a mass scale, right? If you look at YouTube, right, there's so much like bad, like hypnotic language rap and mumble rap music out there. They have like insane views, like billions of views. Like there's nothing intellectually stimulating by any of that stuff, but they have like billions of views. And I know from an insider that they inflate the views to push records out because, and if you're constantly bombarding kids with, this is obviously cool because billions of people have watched it, then you're going on a mainstream, because the mainstream has a herd mentality. Unfortunately, it just does. They follow what's popular. Right? You can make something popular that you want,
right? And
then through that you can actually literally create a bad culture. Bad cultures are much easier to create money from than peaceful, harmonious cultures. Bad cultures have problems. They have drug addictions, they have, they get sicker easier, all sorts of problems.
Sure.
They need more policing, they need like everything, they need looking after, right? And that means money. And I this may be my own like little conspiracy theory, but I think makes sense that there's why else would there be such, I don't believe human beings really like this stuff. I don't think they do. I think they're only liking it because of what I call a phenomenon called FOFO, the fear of feeling out. And it all comes down to tribe mentality, right? Now, 1,000 years ago in the tribe, if you didn't fit into the tribe, okay, and you excluded, you were pretty much dead. Like, right, you done. You're not going to reproduce. And I think over time, the weird ones got excluded and they went off and formed new tribes. And then we had different cultures and that's how culture spread. But ultimately, there's still that problem where nowadays, as I said, we live in concrete jungles. It's not different. We're still tribal. We still do so many things. And I know I did a lot as a young kid, 15, 16 years old, even younger, to fit in. But if I was to take a step back, the stuff that I used to do to fit in was so stupid. So stupid. Like piercing a hole in a Coke can and doing a funnel, not Coke can, a beer can. Funneling booze into your belly within a second.
Oh yeah, we did that over here too.
Ridiculous. It's crazy. You do it as to be cool and to fit in with everyone.
Sure. Seen it on movies.
Seen it, right? And I think that's what's driving the bad taste in the world. And but what the thing is, it's all good. Everything is good. Everything's subjective. Everyone's on their own journey. I'm not here to tell anyone that one piece of music is healing and therapeutic versus another. But what I will say is that you just gotta be honest. Like, what is it that you really like? And when you like unravel the conditioning, which is so hard to do with people these days, because the societal pressure is so strong. But when you usually unravel it, like, there's some commonality starts to emerge, which is pleasant chord sequences. Like melodies that are like timeless. There are certain bands like that are timeless. Everyone loves them. Like most people, like majority, and they've gone a little bit. Like, where are all the cool bands that used to be around? Like Pink Floyd. Where's the new Pink Floyd? It's all gone. It's all turned into a different type of industry. So, but there are some songs and things you just know. You hear it. Everyone likes it. You can't help but like it. There's like a lot of Indian music, so original Indian classical music, where the raga was actually a vibration, and you'll listen to it and it just tingles your spine when you hear the singing and the way it just all goes together with the music and the musicianship and the rhythms and the polyrhythms. It just blows your mind. And I don't think that anyone honestly could say that they don't like some of that stuff, the ancient old classical stuff. Like, that's timeless, like even like Mozart, some of his symphonies, and all cultures have this rich classical music. And now, if you look, a lot of the EDM stuff is borrowing melodies from the olden days and remixing it with cool beats, which is cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more emergence now of like really good music. There's a lot of amazing music, but there is still a lot of absolute crap. Like, what's his name? Drake. Oh my God.
I agree.
Don't get
with
me
you.
started, Drake.
Oh, don't get me started either. I'm sure a lot of people will turn this right off.
I know.
But, so dance and music, they're not just like arts that are supposed to be taught in schools. These are historically ancient parts of our spiritual beings, right? These aren't things that we just, we pop on something in the car, listen to commercials in between. I mean, it can be that, but it can be much more powerful than that too. And maybe you can help speak to some of the people out there who are not musicians, because a lot of music healing, to me anyway, isn't just what you're listening to out there. It's actually participating in the creation yourself. So how could you egg on some listeners who might not have practiced their creative side in a while?
All right, to get more creative. Well, you know what? Like, a lot of people have to undo things. So school has a great habit of putting people off art because they teach things in such a bad way. I was so lucky in my school that my music teacher was awesome. She did not teach us anything technical, and she really didn't want me to learn the technical stuff and to become this like person who just plays like a jukebox, plays other people's songs. She really encouraged me to compose. Like, it was amazing that she did that, because if I could have easily become corrupted. I have friends who are like amazing piano players, like amazing, but they can't compose for shit.
Yeah.
And I've sat with some people who've been like that, and I've broken their mold a bit. And actually, I hate to say it like this, but a good hit of a vape pen. A good dose of that, and this telling
the Renegade
them
Pharmacist returns.
I'm telling you, man, and just forgetting everything you've been taught, and just going and playing from the heart.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it. And you've got to get into the body. And like I've been good with some of my, like the guy who wrote a lot of the music with me in the early days. He was one of these people who couldn't compose for shit. And I encouraged him. I encouraged him every day. I'd basically say, like, look, you know you've got it in you. You know, I think you just need another hit.
Yeah.
And then he'll get a little bit higher, and then suddenly, like, he'll lose the conscious mind will go, and then he'll go into the flow state, and he would be speaking from the heart. And that's where you're going to get to. Because you're going to go into the different levels of the brain. Like, you know, the brain in our head is very analytical, and it will always criticize you, or will always tell you you're not good enough to be like Mozart, because really Mozart's friggin' amazing. So it's rationally actually a good point, you know, that it's making, but ultimately actually, you know, it's all subjective. So what is considered good, maybe some people might think Mozart, you know, and might love your little composition that you just made. So it's like getting people out of the comfort zone, and just really, that's what, with me, I was very, very fortunate. I literally just was very good at just going with the flow and getting in and experimenting, and just, even if it was just weird, like, you know, sounding horrible. Yeah. One way would be I'd like listen to music I really like, and I'd start jamming along with it and coming up with other melodies on top of their melodies, you know, and their chord sequences, and maybe take some inspiration, take some grooves from some pieces, and then adding, you know, it's all about mixing in, like becoming really good at one thing, and then being really good at another area, you know, and then fusing them together to create another offspring. You know, it's like marrying two skills to create a new offspring out of it. So yeah, these are sorts of little tricks that I've picked up along the way.
Well, these skills do start to help each other, and you know, to mention the vape pen, what that really does, that's number one, like a highly shamanic event historically, right? That's kind of how it was done, with not a vape pen, but plant medicine of some kind, to get into a trance state where you're no longer self-monitoring or in that like self-critical state, and you're just letting, for lack of a better term, energy flow through you, whatever that means to what you're doing. And so I think your point is really well taken, but also, you know, one of the things that we'll do is even simpler. We'll just dance around like silly children sometimes when it's like, we're way too serious right now, you know, feeling bogged down by that. Like you almost feel all of it that you're carrying on your back, and then just, you know, being as silly as you can for just a few minutes, moving your body, kind of shaking it out. That's also like a historically shamanic event. That was something that we got from our culture and gave to our culture and kind of breathed in and out as just part of our natural lives. So we almost need to reinsert artificially this stuff, or at least intentionally, this breathing, dance, music, but especially the participation and even creation of all of this ourselves, I think seems so important.
Well, talking about breathing and creativity, one of my very, very profound methods is, it's the signature Soma breath technique. We call it awakening. It literally changes your brain, and it makes you more creative if you put the intention towards it, by the process of how it works. I can explain to you a bit about how that works.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So the most revered technique of all, well, there's two foundational techniques in pranayama, is rhythmic breathing in a rhythm, and kumbhaka, which is breath retention. In fact, another word for pranayama is kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is such a cornerstone of it, but nobody talks about it, and that's holding your breath. And when you hold your breath for a long enough period of time, what happens is it triggers this positive stress response in the body. This is the part to do with making mitochondria more efficient. The kumbhaka technique really helps make mitochondria more efficient, okay? But what it does is, by its mechanism, when you hold your breath and you lower oxygen, you create this state called intermittent hypoxia. What that does, it triggers a cascade of reactions and hormones being produced. Nitric oxide gets produced, you get more vasodilation, carbon dioxide rises, and all the blood vessels dilate in your body, and you get more blood flow to your brain. And this is the amazing thing. When you get more blood flow to the brain, okay, because the brain is the one organ that really needs the most oxygen, Okay, and if you're lowering the oxygen, you're holding your breath for like over a minute 30 or longer, you literally start to wake up dormant parts of the brain. Okay, and this is when, with the power of intention, you can actually, with visualization techniques, enhance the neurogenesis of the brain. They've done some crazy experiments, okay, already, which shows the power of intention, okay, and how the brain works. They had one group of people play a piano piece, and they just learned a piano piece off by heart, okay, and that was actually playing the piano, and they scanned their brains. And then they got another group, and they just got them to visualize playing that same piece over and over and over again, but not actually play it. And guess what happened? When they mapped their brains, they found they had the same changes in the brain.
Wow.
So just by visualization techniques, power of intention, we can change the brain. But when you add on top this kumbhaka techniques and the rhythmic breathing part, which optimizes blood flow from the heart to the brain, massive change can happen to the brain. So you can actually, I believe, hack creativity at the cellular level.
Wow, I dig that. I'm definitely going to try that after this one.
Oh, totally, man. Totally.
Well, we could talk all night, but we're just about out of time. But Niraj, I want to give you a chance to tell folks what you're working on and where they can find you as well.
Well, that's one of the things I'm working on is the somabreath.com. You should definitely go there, sign up for the webinar. I talk a lot about the science of breathwork, yoga, the legend of Soma, where I got all this stuff from, and the ways you can influence your autonomic nervous system at will. So you have conscious control of your involuntary systems, which we've been educated out of. And then you get experience of the Soma awakening experience, which is this amazing breathing ritual, which makes profound changes in the brain. And then we have a course called the 21-Day Protocol, which is a super powerful protocol, a program, over 21 days, led by an instructor. Very powerful. And then you can actually become an instructor yourself if you want. We've got over 140 instructors in the world now, which is amazing, in just a year. So we're growing, and it's becoming a great phenomenon. My aim is to get this into every yoga studio. Pranayama is a massive missing component in yoga, and yoga's kind of lost to some of its value, and its meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Become very asana, fitness led, when really it's a very powerful tool for getting connected with yourself. And so I want to add pranayama back in and really make people understand the true yoga. And then we have, on the other side, we have the renegadepharmacist.com, which is all my supplements and my content all about different health issues and subjects. And we have this amazing system which ties in with each other, between the Renegade Pharmacist and Soma, with the supplements, nutrition, and it's basically a lifestyle that we've created for our instructors. So it's really cool.
That's wonderful. I love that you do so many different things. It's a great example for all those people watching and listening out there, and all those people who are just coming up in the world, because with a few deep breaths, you can do a lot more than you ever thought possible.
Yeah. And it's really, as I said, it's about mastering a couple of skills, joining them together to create something new. That's creativity.
Yes.
That's all you got to do.
Yes.
All you got to do, master a couple of skills. It could be marketing and piano. Put them together and you may become an amazing piano teacher online or something. I don't know, just throwing those ideas out there.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Cool, man. Fantastic. Love it. Peace.
This episode is brought to you by listeners like you and Future Greens. Let me ask you something. Did you eat your veggies today? All of them? Believe it or not, fewer than 10% of adults and children in America get their recommended fruits and veggies in daily. That is absolutely atrocious, and many millions of us are suffering from disease, obesity, and ill health as a direct result. So my wife Allison and I decided to do something about it. Now you can double your intake of fruits and veggies in less than 60 seconds without the sugar or carbs. We're excited to bring you our new superfood greens powder called Future Greens to make it easy to get organic, nutrient-dense veggies in every day, no matter where you are. Future Greens is packed with vitamins, minerals, and filling prebiotic fiber from whole organic veggies, sprouts, algae, and berries, including kale, beet, parsley, collard greens, cauliflower sprouts, broccoli sprouts, spirulina, chlorella, blueberries, raspberries, and much more. Since Future Greens is preserved, you can get your greens on even when fresh produce, salads, and smoothies are far out of reach. Future Greens makes getting nutrition easy, and it tastes great if I do say so myself. Future Greens is a smart and convenient source of nutrition for disaster preparedness, road trips, camping, athletics, and more. It travels great in the car, on the plane, or in a spaceship. Just make sure you activate artificial gravity before opening. Basically, it's like vegetables from the future. So if you're looking to increase your energy and health without the crash from caffeine or sugar, meet your new best friend, Future Greens. As a listener of Fat Burning Man, you can get a 20% discount to try it yourself right now. Just visit fatburningman.com/greens to get over 20% off when you subscribe and save. You'll get our coolest new concoction from Wild Superfoods called Future Greens. Again, just head on over to fatburningman.com/greens to get over 20% off your purchase. We'll see you there. Well, hey there, listener. This is Abel one more time, and I just want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Fat Burning Man Show. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you might be listening to or watching this show right now. And if you have a second, please leave me a quick review for the Fat Burning Man Show. I read every single one of them, and every time you leave a review, it gives us a little boost in the rankings, and that helps other people find this show. And if you can think of someone else who might enjoy and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or a family member. And if they're like, what is this Fat Burning Man thing? That's a really silly name. You could be like, you're right, but here's the deal. We've recorded over 250 episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show with thought leaders in health from all over the world. And so far, we've won 4 awards, hitting #1 in health in more than 8 countries internationally. We have more than 30 million downloads already, but we're just getting started. I can't believe any of this, by the way, and couldn't do any of this without you, so thanks once again. But here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode of the Fat Burning Man Show for free with 0 outside advertisements, no outside sponsors, and no corporate overlords. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. I'll give you a second here just to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes, transcripts, and video and audio versions for all the past episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show for free. Better yet, enter your email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide so you can take your health into your own hands right now, along with a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now, enter your best email to get your free goodies with a bonus surprise straight to your inbox. This is Abel James signing off. Thank you so much for listening once again, and have a great week.